36 now, yeah. I think we closed in July of 2012, so I would have been 25, 26 when we made that deal.
That's insane. So you're 36, you're closing on your first business and 24, 25 years old. You're now 36 and you've started and exited 3 businesses already.
Welcome to the Success Flow Podcast, where our mission is simple: to be better each day and relay our findings with other relentless humans defining success for themselves. If that sounds like you, let's begin. All right, we are back at it at the Success Flow Podcast, and today we have a real treat for the listeners with another guest coming on board. Excited to have Ryan Strand on the podcast today.
Pumped to be here.
Ryan and I are relatively new friends, and Steven now, as we have all wound up in the same men's group that we mention on this podcast frequently. Junto, group of like-minded guys in Phoenix that are trying to get better with themselves and in the community and trying to lift each other up. Ryan and I met 2.5 years ago, and we're going to kick off by really talking about one of his ventures. He's a serial entrepreneur, has a very diverse background, which we'll get into. But meeting at Canteen, which was the name of the place, I found it because it was a co-working space that was laid out brilliantly. It had a conference room. It had private offices for a handful of entrepreneurs in the valley to work at. Nice individual conference rooms to take Zoom calls where you were mostly interrupted. And it was just a great concept. I'm a little sad it's gone. But I guess before we jump into Canteen, I introduced you two well before Ryan joined Junto, Steven, didn't I?
Oh, yeah. I think it was... So, Ryan, you joined when? April last year? Or this year?
I think so,
this
yeah.
year, April?
This year. Yep.
Yeah, so it probably was about a year ago when I met you, and we hung out at Phil's place, and we went out that night, and I remember driving around. You drove us in your Mercedes that was, I don't even know what model it was, but it was like a rocket ship, dude. It was like flying to outer space. This thing was so awesome.
I just drive like an ass. That's all that is.
Yeah, I immediately was drawn to you, man. Like you're just a genuine guy, and it was pretty easy to tell why Phil was good buddies with you, and we had a good time that night. And then when Phil came, he said, "Hey, what do you think about Strand and joining our group, Junto?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's throw his name in the hat. He's awesome." And then just getting to know you more through that and your story, I'm excited for you jumping on this episode and diving into what you're up to and getting a little bit more of your story.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you having me. I think, I was certainly honored when Phil mentioned, being a part of Junto. I obviously didn't know anything about it at all, but, hesitant at first because, as I've mentioned to both of you, a lot of times when you join a group, at least, when you're somebody who prides himself on taking care of business and you join a group, sometimes you get a little disappointed in everybody's efforts, but I will say I've been so rewarded and just happily surprised by how hard everybody pulls for the group and shows up for the group, and so it's been a wonderful, better part of a year being a part of the group of guys.
Yeah, I remember when we first met you, when you were about to jump in, we kind of go through this little bit of an interview process, if you will, kind of get to know you. And it was me, Stevens, and Nate Dominguez came by your spot, and that was one of the biggest questions you had. Was like, dude, fellas, like I love it. It all sounds great, but what's the group like? Like, do people hold each other accountable? Are we really, truly leveling up? Like, I'm not here to just have fun, party, good old boy type of club. Like, I'm here to get better. If that's what you're saying, I want to know if that's truly what's happening. And I'm glad you're recognizing that just after a few short months being a part of it. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, pretty quickly I realized by the quality of individuals as a part of the group and the communication that was happening between everybody that it was going to be what I hoped it was going to be.
Yeah, so taking it back a little ways to Canteen, I want you to walk us through the idea because this is a great example. There are probably some entrepreneurs listening that are feeling the effects of timing right now. And so would love to hear the initial concept for Canteen and just that journey along the way. When I met Ryan at Canteen, it was pretty evident to me that he was a full stack entrepreneur talking investments while drinking a cold brew at the at the bar there was a lot more to him, and I had to drag this out of him on the golf course, which was my initial play, is to get him out on the golf course. But the journey that he's been on coming from the Midwest as well is pretty impressive. So take us to Canteen, and maybe we'll go backward from there and then jump forward to what you're up to now.
Yeah, I mean, Canteen was an idea really born out of a need for my sales guys for a roofing company that I had, and just didn't, I had experienced every version that an entrepreneur can of an office. I had the cheap office with parking in the suburbs, and then I had the really nice WeWork membership for everybody, and so there was just a gap there for what we needed. And so when I had the really nice membership for everybody for WeWork, between parking and getting everybody to come to the office and take the elevator up and get in there for a meeting when they were really out in the world, trying to make deals happen, it was a struggle. And it was a struggle to pay attention to what they were doing. And so I was really looking for something that bridged that gap between us having an accessible, easy, lots of parking office in the suburbs versus like something that was more mobile that we didn't have to spend, $5,000 to $8,000 a month for. And so the concept sort of trickled down or boiled down into, I want to put a co-work space into a busy sort of retail center as opposed to a high rise, or as opposed to in a sleepy office, outside of town. And so just looking around for shopping centers of where everybody kind of migrates, something that's like, hey, we're going to hop off the freeway. There's a sports bar in here. There's maybe some other amenities. And so you can swing by and, if you're in the area, you can pop in and knock out your Zoom or your conference call, or if you need a little office. And then it's also a spot for everybody to meet and grab some food and grab a cocktail or grab a beer after work. And so it was trying to fill a need. And so that really wasn't in the marketplace. And so I came up with this co-work, co-play concept that you became familiar with, and settled on the Canteen name, as it was where the original etymology was where soldiers would stop to refill for supplies, and return to their barracks and grab what they needed to get back out into the field. And so that was the source of the name. And then really it started with my sales guys coming in and out of there, and we signed the lease on the place, started working on what we were going to do for the layout and the conference rooms. And then, of course, about a week after that, COVID shut the world down. And I mean, yeah, we had the plan was just for us to have a liquor license so we could, sell wine and beer during like the happy hour time. But most of it was going to be a co-work space. But obviously, with COVID, you couldn't sell alcohol without food. And so that turned into, well, now we've got to, get a kitchen open. And luckily, the space had a kind of makeshift spot for us to do that. So we unfortunately had to go down the menu of food, which I wanted to stay away from, but went that route. And then, pretty quickly, though, it became a fun spot during the day. And then, truthfully, the bar side of it just took over time, and that just wasn't my original intention. So it was just a concept. I decided that this isn't something I want to scale. I didn't want to be in the bar and food business, and so ended up selling the concept to a couple of investors. But it was a fun ride, and I met a lot of great people.
Yeah, there's a handful of stories I know, people personally, that were just getting launched right at that time, early 2020, and then the world shuts down, and knowing that you were one of those guys too, but you had to pivot,
yeah.
Right? Like everyone had to pivot to figure it out and stay in business, and you did keep it thriving in order to enough to then have an exit from there. We were one of those people. My office, we were moving out of ours and looking at co-working spaces at the time. And we were about to sign a 1 year or 2 year lease for a co-working space and didn't because of that reason. So we were on the flip side where we got lucky that we didn't sign the dotted line there. But, I think it's cool that you did take a co-working space, put it into something that would work for the times that you had to deal with, and then realize, this isn't really in alignment, so I'm going to exit here. But you had the roofing company, you said, and you had Canteen. So that's two companies that you now have started and sold. right? The roofing company was about just about the same time or right before that, or when did that happen?
So interesting enough, I was in the finance side of the auto industry for a long time, and a guy that I'd worked with in the auto industry was selling for this company, and so I got involved merely as a stabilizing factor to come in and bring some financial discipline and some process to the business, and then ended up with the business and running it in a couple locations, mostly here in Arizona after a while. And, just kind of as the chapters of life sort of turn and write themselves, an interesting turnout that I had the business, and then luckily was fortunate to have a couple of incredible staff. I had my cousin who was a very bright, hardworking young man who also wanted to try to make something of himself, come out and really him and I went at it together, and luckily he's still there and running an additional office for them. But I ended up selling the company last year as well. So yeah, it's been an interesting entrepreneurial journey for sure.
And you don't stop.
And I don't stop.
Still going.
On to the next. Before we get to where you're at now and what you're building now, which is awesome and probably the sexiest business in Gento. Take us back to my personal favorite business and hope to go experience it someday. Talk us through the lodge.
Sure. So about 12 years ago now, when I was finally started to do well and not have to worry about food, I finally was looking for a business to buy. And I grew up in northern Wisconsin. And so there was a sort of a hunting and fishing and snowmobile lodge that became available. That my family had known about for a long time. We'd certainly visited and been in there a bunch. And so it was a kind of a perfect opportunity for me to pick up a small business back in my home state. My parents were really close, so eventually they ended up moving to the property and basically running the day-to-day. And, it worked out great timing for my family for them to be able to move, and there's a house on the property for them. So, it was just a really cool part of the world. I tell everybody it's a wonderful place to be from. It's all the way up in northern Wisconsin. You could basically throw a stone into the Upper Peninsula, and in the summer it's absolutely beautiful and there's no better fishing in the world. And then in the winter, it's right in the middle of the heart of snowmobile country where everybody bar hops on snowmobiles. So it's just a fun place to be a part of. And I also ended up selling that towards the end of 2020. But that was about a 10-year adventure. And there's a small hotel on the property, and then about a 4,000 square foot bar and restaurant on the lake, and then on the snowmobile trail. So a lot of work, but I was very lucky there to have a really great staff and have close family who was there to watch over a lot of it as well.
Dude, that's incredible. How old are you? You're 36, 37?
I'm 36 now. Yeah, I think we closed in July of 2012, so I would have been 25, 26 when we made that deal.
That's insane. So you're 36. You're closing on your first business and 24, 25 years old. You're now 36, and you've started and exited 3 businesses already, which entrepreneurs haven't even exited yet, right? They're still working on their first one or whatever. And not only you crush it, but now you've got this new thing. You took over at the Scottsdale Air Park. So talk to us about what you're up to now and your passion behind that.
Yeah, sure. So along the journey, I actually got my pilot's license out here in Scottsdale, and was renting from a Cirrus facility when I wanted to fly. And previous to my most recent sale, I was really wanting to get back into flying, was looking for something to kind of get me motivated again and give me some momentum, because I was feeling very stagnant. So after I had sold Canteen and actually my primary residence, I decided, I want to start flying more. So I had contacted the place I had gotten my instrument rating from, and then ended up working with the owner over a few months, ended up making a deal to take over the business. And basically what we do now is we do bespoke one-on-one pilot training for corporate executives or investors in the area who want to get their pilot's license and aren't going to go sit in a classroom like a younger person would. They want to come in, sit with somebody who's extremely experienced. They want to fly in a high performance, comfortable airplane with all the modern avionics, And so that's really what we do now is provide a fleet and access to that. Once we get them licensed, then they have the ability to book the airplane and fly their family to San Diego or Telluride or wherever they want to go on vacation. And, it makes for an incredible life achievement, and then access to, destinations that you normally wouldn't have if you didn't have your license.
And what is that business called?
That business is called Flightworks, Scottsdale. So we're based at the air park here in Scottsdale. Luckily, we have a facility about 13,000 square feet that's inside the security fence. So we're right on the runway, so our clients can park here, walk through the hangar, and they have access right inside the hangar from where they park, and the airplanes will be staged out front for them.
So if there's anyone itching at all to get that pilot's license, which I know there's one listener specifically that is, who you are. Now you know where to go and reach out and get it done. There's no better place in the valley, that's for sure.
Well, dude, and those you've been to his hangar, Phil, right? I mean, he's got these. They're Cirrus, right? Cirrus Airlines, Cirrus flights.
Everything we have in the fleet is Cirrus SR22 turbos. It's key for us to have that kind of airplane in the desert, and obviously in all the different elevations that we have flying in the western part of the country. So, high performance, high altitude. All the airplanes have a cap system, which is basically the airplane itself has its own parachute. So, if you're in a situation where you can't save yourself with the airplane, the whole airplane has a parachute that you would reach up and pull down, and that would, bring you safely to the ground. And on top of that, then there's, incredible flight envelope. You have close to 200 miles an hour. You're only burning about 17 gallons an hour, so it's an efficient airplane. Gets you to all the destinations you want to go fast. So yeah, I call it the Ferrari of personal airplanes. It's like getting your driver's license in a Ferrari instead of your grandfather's handed down Accord or something like that.
Yeah, those things are ridiculous. I mean, I don't know too much about airplanes, or I didn't grow up around them or anything like that. But hanging out at your hangar, you walking us through and giving us the tour, it was really eye-opening of what all is involved. And what's cool about it is you're teaching people, you're getting them their pilot's license, and then they can just go out and use it as kind of like a rental or maintenance fee, if you will. And you offer like a concierge service. It's not like, you're involved, and it's like a hospitality aspect to it of making them feel good about being a part of your group.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's one, it's the type of clientele we have, but one thing that I've worked on since taking over is kind of changing just sort of the attitude and the modus operandi of the type of clients that we have, because they're pilots. Most places that they're used to renting from or getting an airplane from, the facilities are more meant for if there was a passenger client. So the passenger would be used to showing up and receiving white glove service, somebody to greet them, maybe drinks available. And so we try to take that attitude, and slowly but surely we've instilled some process and some staff that have tried to give pilots that similar experience to a charter feel, even though they're the ones actually flying the airplane.
Yeah, I remember when you had said, you ever taken a drive up to Flagstaff on a Friday and then you come home on a Sunday, and you're hitting, if you're from Arizona, listeners, you know that the 17 is a one-way road up to Flagstaff and on the way back. And
yeah.
Ryan was telling us, he goes, you ever hit that traffic and you're just trying to get up to Flag, and it's like, man, you're stuck in traffic for hours. And well, you could be on one of these Cirrus planes that are just looking down on everybody going, see ya, I'll be home in 20 minutes from Phoenix. It was so funny.
I went to Flagstaff today for lunch. It took me about 30 minutes to get up there, and then I was back here by dinner. So there's nothing more rewarding than leaving Flagstaff on a Sunday at 5 o'clock, and you get to look down and stare at everybody in their car for about 5 hours.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That is brutal, and for all of our folks that like to head up north, there's your solution. It's right there.
That's right. Just get your pilot's license. Yep.
I want to not necessarily pivot, but the demanding role of owning a business takes a lot of time. However, one of the main reasons, not main, but a big reason why I knew you were just the epitome of what Junto is looking to attract and be is the work that you're doing on the side as well. And so could you expand on how you came about the community work that you're doing and tell us a little bit about that organization?
Sure. Well, as part of Canteen, and mentioning I met a lot of great people, there's a great community of people that I met there who were trying to do some, I guess, put their partying to better use. And I'll credit Julie Sigelski. This was her idea. Actually, she got together a group of our friends, and we decided that when we were going to all get together and drink wine or throw a party, we were going to try to, like I said, do it and put that money and that effort to better use. So under her guidance, we started a charity called Big Hearts Arizona. Obviously, our first event that you attended was at Canteen, and we were able to send a young girl who's terminally ill to Disneyland for a week to be a princess and Disney princess. And I will tell you, it was extremely rewarding. We had a inaugural event. We raised almost $10,000 within 2 weeks of hearing about it, and then throwing the event, and then having the event. And so since then, we've built on that, had multiple events, and been able to do a lot of really cool, small, intimate charity donations and capital raises through events for causes that are, close to us. We really didn't want to do a charity that would just raise money for another charity or just to donate to like Phoenix Children's Hospital, for example. We wanted to have it be local people who could bring up ideas of, hey, this person could use a hand up, or this cause it's close to us, it's small enough for you guys to be able to handle on your own. And so in that $5,000 to $10,000 range is really our kind of home stretch, and we try to make a big impact on one or two people's lives, 2 or 3 times a year.
It's a very focused charity, and that's what I love about it. There's a local feel to it, just great human beings. There's also there is a bags tournament that... Oh,
I'm in for that for sure.
Love to claim you as a partner, but I think we should sponsor Jim Stevens if you're listening. But we definitely have to... That's an awesome event. Right, this year, I don't know if that's the plan this year or not, but we'll definitely be increasing the head count with Junto this year.
Yeah, I think we're going to do it again this year. It was a lot of fun. We raised a lot of money, and obviously everybody got their competitive spirit out, and cornhole always brings out the best of us, I say. So it was fun.
Yeah, cornhole's my jam. I'll be involved. Just let me know when and where, and I'll be there. But hey, Ryan, so I wanted to ask you, we've got a lot of listeners that are, thinking about starting a business or already running businesses. You've got a lot of experience in this area. What kind of advice would you give a young entrepreneur starting their first go at, one of their passions for their business?
I would just tell people that it's between your ears. It has so little to do with the mechanics or the math of it. Obviously, that stuff has to be in place. And if you feel like that stuff, that's why you're going down the path of entrepreneurship. But the battles are in between your ears. They're in your head every day. And you have to find a way to talk yourself into moving forward over every hurdle. You have to be able to take all of the things that will go wrong and count them as part of the journey, because if you can't stomach that, there is nothing wrong with this, but you should keep a job. You should stay and have an enjoyable career, enjoy your family, and stay away from entrepreneurship. But if you have the mental fortitude to fight those battles, then there is no greater reward than coming out the other side successful.
Nice. Yeah, I can agree with you. It is a big mental game, and how you adapt and pivot and overcome obstacles. Like, you're just going to have those valleys just as much as you're going to have the peaks. And that's great advice. And I know you've got a big heart, but you also have a lot of discipline in your life. And you've used that word a lot. I've heard you use that before, and how you talk with other people and entrepreneurs and leaders and whatnot. So talk us a little bit about your life a little bit and how you're disciplined there.
Yeah, so, truthfully, I credit my best friend, Michael Madden, who's a surgeon now, with exposing me to it early on. And I certainly have lost my way over the last few years to it, as I've mentioned to you guys. And so it was something I prided myself on for many years, about, being up early, making it into the gym, taking care of myself, being purposeful with my actions. There's a time when I certainly got tired of it and found myself weaker than I had ever. And so and it's been in the last couple of years. And so I've really had to dig deeper and find another gear to sort of turn that ship around. And as I've mentioned to you guys, the last few months, I finally feel like I've turned that corner and I'm going down that path. And part of that, as attending Summit with you guys at Junto, was a commitment to go between our annual Summit meetings, no alcohol. And so I'm using my ability to refrain from it, not drink, as a guidepost for me to instill the discipline that I had convinced myself was innate in me for a long time, and turns out it wasn't. It was something I had to practice, and so just finally getting back into practicing it daily and feeling good about it.
Yeah, we talk about that lead domino, right? It's not just about the alcohol. For other people, it might be their sleep or social media or something like that. But if you have that one pillar in place, it sets as a guidepost for the other habits. And it's wild how that ripple effect can happen. And you can already see with you bringing this up, the rising tide lifts all ships, right? And you can see that ripple effect happening when you have a group of like-minded people. It's been really cool to see that effect.
Yeah, discipline certainly is a heavy boat that draws a large wake, and people get drawn into it quickly. I've been very rewarded by making the attestation to you guys about incorporating it in my life and making it, what I plan to bring to the Junto community. That other guys have jumped on the boat in their own way, whether it's diet or exercise or commitment to their wife, showing up in a different way and making a conscious effort every day. The value in instilling something that you can ask of yourself each day is that the compounding return on that is so unquantifiable. You do something for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. By that 9th or 10th week, it is who you are. And so when you start practicing it every day, it's how you instill it. And, the nice thing, like with alcohol and not having it, is I can, maybe I don't have a day where my diet is as dialed as I would like it to be, but I can turn to that and say the day is not lost. I have not given up ground because I am still holding to that one item of discipline that I've committed to myself. And so there's no going back. And there's only momentum forward, and there's no feeling like, well, I'm off the tracks now, I might as well have a cocktail, or I'm off the tracks now, I might as well have a third or a fourth. So now I might as well have tacos or dessert because I'm already drinking. So when you can do it every day, it's key to instilling it, and that's the compounding return on stuff that you do for yourself is just as rewarding and as valuable as any investment you can make that has a compounding return.
Yeah, I've lived it. I also made changes this year as well. I think it's incredible for you to be disciplined and make that summit to summit challenge, if you will, with no booze. I kicked off this year dry January, parlayed it into dry February, and for me, like, I was never that laser focused or energized in my entire life to be able to wake up without fogginess, without walking around on autopilot. Like, it was just like go time, and it was just natural. It's like, who knew? Just drink water and eat healthy and work out a little bit, and all of a sudden you become a superhuman. But that has led to me. I'm to strength training, right? So I started that in the Q1 of this year, and I never worked out ever. So that's kind of my commitment of my Summit to Summit challenge for the group, is to have a certain number of workouts. I think I identified about 210, which is about 17 workouts a month, which is a lot for me, but that is my challenge. And right now I'm currently in a 30-day sprint of no booze. And I just like having the flexibility that I parlay the strength training to now another habit is coming into form where, well, if I'm waking up early to work out, I can't be a fool the night before either. So there's a lot of good that comes from when you establish one habit that you want to change and be disciplined with that one. It will then impact, and you'll build more habits on top of that. And then eventually, like you said, it just becomes your identity. It's just who you are.
I think one thing that everyone sees as they get older, and, I guess I say older, and I'm fortunate to still be in my, mid to late 30s, but you look back and you realize that the momentum of anything is so powerful. And so when you start doing one or two things right, it's amazing how just like people fall into the wake of discipline, all the other things in your life start to fall into that same wake. And it's a great point. If I'm not drinking, I'm not going to be out somewhere at 10. Nothing good happens after 11 p.m. anyway. So if you're home in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, you're waking up earlier and earlier, and you're feeling better. And so you're at, slowly but surely, all the rest of it starts to fall into place. It's a no-brainer.
I love it. And I'm one of those folks that is jumping on and joining you through Summit. Did partake at a Metallica concert a few weeks ago, but
you'll be forgiven.
I just love seeing it. I love seeing the energy being generated at Junto, and if we're going to talk about it so much, I got to put your money where your mouth is, so I'll be joining you there as well. I think as we kind of wrap up here, I'm curious. I know that you've learned something from each and every one of your businesses in regard to that full stack entrepreneur sharpening the sword as you go. But do you have any key time where you felt like you made a significant jump, whether it's from an obstacle in the business or just parlaying what you knew as an employee working in the finance sector? Did you have any kind of key turning point where you felt like you really leveled up and learned a lot in a short period of time?
I think it's certainly been this last year, and I guess I would say like anything else where you feel like you've moved the most forward, it usually starts with a challenge. I think doing multiple entrances and exits and seeing the deals go from absolutely incubator stage to creating an entity to starting the process and hiring staff, and then all the way through an exit, and all of those pain points of hindsight on contract negotiations, whether in or out of a business. All that stuff starts to percolate in your mind, and you start getting better at seeing the whole picture. And then I think just over this last year, having been free of everything for a moment, and then feeling like there is no value in it, like all of the talk about everybody looking to an exit, and when I sold, my life will be this way. None of that's true. I can attest that none of that is true. When you're free of it, that's when you feel like you're bringing the least amount of value to the world. And the moment where I realized when I had sold everything, including my primary residence of my house and every business version of one that I had, it was hard to realize that there was no value in that, and to come to that moment and then have to say, I have to go back and put all my chips on the table, not because there isn't, not because you want more money or there's anything left to prove. It's because that's the only thing you know how to do, and that's how you build value in yourself. And so, certainly this year, having to learn that lesson and realizing that you have to play, whether you're winning or losing, you have to play, because it's where you feel like a duck in water, and whether you're winning or losing, you have to be in the pond.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing that stuff, and I think you kind of nailed it, where when you're in it, you have purpose because you're impacting others. And we talk about purpose a lot on this podcast. And it's like your passions now they're no longer your own, and you're making an impact in the community. So that's your purpose. And now when you exit those, now it's like, oh shit, what's my purpose again? Like, how do I redefine that? And you got to go through that process. But I think it's really important what you said, is that a lot of people do look at the outcome, and they look at, if this happens, I will be happy, instead of I am happy because I'm doing this, right? And they don't think about the journey along the way. And, we get constant reminders of that, as long as you're, seeking out those circles and around the people that inspire and motivate you. But, it's just really good advice. Before we wrap up here, Ryan, what does success mean to you?
Boy, I think, as I mentioned, over the last year, it's evolved greatly for me. Recently, I think now it's really about, when I leave the house in the morning, do I have somewhere to be where I'm counted on to be there? Is my phone ringing for the right reasons? Is there opportunity ringing? And am I accepting that in a positive way, where I'm not looking at my phone ringing as a problem or if I was doing better, my phone wouldn't be ringing like this. For now, it's having your phone ring, realizing that problems are opportunities, and then finding a way to use that as fuel. As long as I'm in that mindset now, I feel like that's how I'm defining success. If I come to it looking at phone calls that way and looking at the work that I have to do in front of me that day as a challenge that is, what I'm built for, I feel like I'm living what I define as success now, and it's certainly very different than I ever defined it before.
That's fantastic. This was a great conversation. One last plug for the lady listeners. Ryan is single. I mean, as of last week.
This is true.
And how can you not get weak at the knees with that voice, Ryan? We need to have you on more often.
Yeah. I've been told many times I have both a face and a voice for radio, so this is perfect for me.
Like, subscribe, hit us with some notes. You can find Ryan at Flightworks. And we'll be here same time next week.
Appreciate you having me, guys.